Hi, John. Good morning. Hi, all. I want to introduce John Rakesh, who is our VP Strategic Initiative at the for the technology division for our product engineering division. Today, what we want to do is get his perspective of where the technology industry is moving and learn from his experience. John, let me ask you this. When we start out, we were talking about trends, right? So, let me ask you this. 2023, we moved a long way when it comes to technology from what it was 20, 30 years ago to what it is today. There's a tectonic shift in what we see. The entire landscape has moved. There's a tectonic shift, and the entire landscape has changed. What do you see as the trend that's happening in 2023? What's your
Right.
perspective of it?
Yeah. Thank you, Vijay. Yeah. So if you ask me, there's a longer term trend, and you see also something that is short term. So you can
Hmm.
see. So longer term is something which you really look at, over the next so many years, looking at the past and looking at the future. You have a trend. If you look at the immediate trend right now, it's not very good as such. If you look at the U.S. market, for example, that's where
Got
we are
it.
focusing. Right.
Got it.
So let me cover the immediate trend right now. Then I will come to the long-term trend of, at least the
Got it.
long-term. I think we can envision it, right? That's what you're looking
Yeah.
at. So short-term right now, there are some what do you call storm clouds in the market. There is a uh, really there have been talk of some the inflation has been a problem for the U.S. market,
Hmm.
and the venture capital investment has been down 50% year over year from last year. In fact, this quarter it came down. I was just looking at the report just now, like 13% this quarter came down, right?
Got it.
People are kind of concerned. The tech industry had done a lot of layoffs and things like that, especially the big companies. If you look at Facebook and Amazon and Google, there'll be a lot of layoffs.
Hmm.
But having said that, um, uh, job market is still strong enough. Maybe not in the IT sector per se, but overall, if you look at the rest of the industry, you have not seen
Hmm.
that kind of drop in the job market. So, which is why the economy is still chugging along, right?
Got it.
There are people concerned about what's going to happen, and the IT industry seems to have overhired a lot of people, and they're kind of letting go, and that has an effect is a ripple effect on to the rest of the. So people are kind of
Correct.
holding back.
Correct.
So there is a venture funding is taking a hit right now. People are kind of concerned, but
Hmm.
still, important things are happening. People are still planning. They're trying to go ahead with many of the plans, and in more subdued, more strategic way. That's what we're
Got it.
seeing right now.
Got it.
In terms of the technologies per se, which we are working with, because that's what I can talk about. We see that over the last 5 years to now, you see cloud computing is one of the key things. A lot of
Hmm.
things are happening. That we continue to work on that. Of course, there are other areas like IoT, for example, which is
Hmm.
seeing a lot of. Again, those areas again has come to a slowdown right now, but
Hmm.
it is still a maturing market, and the IoT is still a maturing market.
Got it.
Then we have the big gorilla right now is AI. AI is one
Hmm.
of the biggest.
Oh, yes,
So
it
I'll
is.
talk that separately maybe because that requires a little discussion in its own,
Got it.
right? So that is one of the things. Then there are things like blockchain, for example, NFTs and things like that. So the way it works, if you ask me, Gartner
Hmm.
has a good example on this. They have something called the hype cycle. Gartner has a
Hmm.
hype cycle.
Got it.
So, so the idea is that it doesn't fit to everything that you see, but it does give you a general trend of how this technologies evolve, and they peak and they crash and they come back. That's the kind of thing. So what they say is there is this it's an innovation trigger. You start with something starts, and maybe it's a cloud computing, maybe it's AI, something like that. Maybe it's a bit blockchain.
Hmm.
It goes into a very high peak of what do you call inflated expectations, as I call it.
Hmm.
This is big peak goes into. And then at some point, people realize, we kind of went through this hype so much and it kind of crashes a little bit. So that's not a crash, really. They call it a trough of disillusionment. That's what they call it.
Okay.
And then after goes a trough, the thing starts maturing. People understand what it can really do, the technology can really do. And then you
Hmm.
go into a gradual slope of enlightenment. That's what they call it. It goes
Okay.
straight up. Okay. And then it goes into plateau. It's not like going up. In plateau of productivity. That's where
Hmm.
it goes. So most of these technologies go through the cycle, this particular cycle, which is not true of everything, but it's a general trend, right? So we see many of these technologies right now going through the cycle.
Got it.
And yeah, and AI, for example, like generative AI, if you look at it, according to them, at least last year, before AI went viral, the chat GPT went viral,
Hmm.
it was going down the trough. Okay, that's the way they've kind of, which was true, which was the way it was looking at it. If you last 2 years, if you look at it, there was no, I mean, AI was there, but it wasn't something big as people had envisioned right now. But
Correct.
all of a sudden, things have changed, right? So trend-wise, we'll continue working on what we are already doing on, like
Hmm.
cloud is there, DevOps is another area, then AI, test automation, IoT. So these are some of the key areas that we see action happening. We have to be watching out on the market to see how things are developing.
Hmm.
Uh, so even though trends are pointing down, at least AI is giving a big boost
Got it.
to the market.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, like you said, every trend is pointing in a different direction, but AI is pointing in the opposite
Yeah,
direction. You're right. You're
yeah,
right.
that's
So when you talk about AI, there's something called ChatGPT that's come into the market, right? So very specific in terms of the usage, use cases, and all that, and it's kind of revolutionized the way people look at generative AI, and uh, and the use cases have kind of exploded in the last couple of months. Give us a glimpse of what ChatGPT is, and some of its use cases that you can perceive. And yeah, go ahead.
That's really a big topic in itself, but let me see if I can give you some background on this.
Okay.
Um, ChatGPT was kind of a viral thing. People,
Mhm.
lot of it came, it just appeared in the world suddenly and then got 100 million users in 1 month. No? That's a kind of adoption that is on ChatGPT, right? But
Correct.
if you've been following AI for the past 2 years now,
Hmm.
the technology behind it was not a surprise at all.
Correct.
In fact, we have been working with similar models 1 year back in our own R&D. Right? We
Okay.
have been doing similar, right? So it was not a surprise to any of the people who are working inside that these models can do these kind of things. But
Absolutely.
all these models were being built in a closet, not only to researchers. Google was keeping it under wraps, Meta was even under wraps, etc. The difference was that OpenAI decided to go straight to the web with it, right?
Correct.
And they also did not expect that it's going to go viral, right?
Hmm.
But all of a sudden it went viral, and that's what happened. And that is a big boost to the overall industry per se, big boost to OpenAI, big boost to the industry per se, because
Hmm.
now everybody has a mind share on it.
Got it.
So it wasn't something that happened with that. It's actually been developed over the time in the last 2 3 years. We have seen those developments, right?
Correct.
And those developments are really amazing.
Hmm.
People are not really aware of what these models can do.
Got it.
It's almost sentient. You can say it's almost sentient. It's not sentient, but the way these behaviors of these models are really kind of almost sentient. You could call that. So ChatGPT is just a model called GPT, which is
Hmm.
wrapped into a chatbot. Right? It's chatbot, right? So the capabilities of the same model you can see in Google's models. You can see them in Stanford model. You can see them in what do you call Google, Facebook. All of them have many of these models. There are
Got it.
open source models like Bloom. They
Hmm.
also have similar capabilities. It's just that it burst upon the scene in a viral way through ChatGPT.
Got it.
And because of that ability for them to get that mind share, a lot of investors have piled on them, and the capabilities have actually accelerated. Now everybody's trying to get on top of it, right? Because Google has a product which was better than this earlier. Now is no longer as good as GPT-4.
Got it.
So they're trying to get onto the market, but these guys have got a head start of
Correct.
about everybody else.
Correct. Now, what
Now the question is,
happens? Sorry.
yeah,
So what happens
yeah,
is when something like this crops up, the ecosystem around it kind of develops, isn't it? It's the same thing that we saw with
yeah,
Uber. When Uber came up, we saw an influx of cabs running in the market. Though, of course, I'm not. That's not an apple to apple comparison. I'm talking about technology and the physical world. But you look at Chat GPT, there is an ecosystem around it that will build, and some of it we might be surprised also that it's got such an use case itself, isn't it? So, what's that
ah,
ecosystem that you see in the business
yeah.
context that gets built around ChatGPT?
Yeah, so that's a whole story in itself. Let me just talk a little bit about what the GPT models can do. I may
Okay.
not necessarily say Chat GPT. Chat
Okay.
is just a wrap around the
Yeah.
GPT. So GPT-4 is probably the latest model that came out.
Correct.
So these models are almost what you call as AGI or artificial general intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
That is an AI which can do anything for you.
Got it.
Okay. It's not quite there, but it's getting pretty close to AGI. So what does it mean is, these models, not just GPT-4,
Uh-huh.
looking at Llama or Palm from Google, etc. No? These models can be specialist in almost everything you have today.
Mm-hmm.
And they can reason and they can plan. Planning is kind of limited.
Mm-hmm.
And they can execute tasks on your behalf, just like you talk to any other person.
Got it.
So when you do that, the first thing you have to do is you have to prime them.
Got it.
You have to say, give them a persona.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you say, act as a software engineer
Got it.
or an Android expert.
Got it.
Or you say, act as a lawyer,
Got it.
act as a cook.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can ask about culinary questions or about lawyer questions. I have this problem, solve this for me. Give me the details of this one. And it's going to solve all the solutions for you.
Got it.
So you have a piece of code to write. I say, I want to see a piece of code which says in Android, how do I do this?
Mm-hmm.
So first you become an Android developer. Assume you're an Android expert developer. I have this problem of, can you generate code for me like this?
Got it.
It's going to generate code for you, right? And then that code may not be perfect today.
Mm-hmm.
So when you compile it, you may get an error.
Correct.
So you give the error back to the system, and the system says, I signed this error.
Mm-hmm.
Then the system will, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Let me correct it for you.
Oh, that's
So it will fix the error, give you another piece of code.
that's
So just
fantastic.
like a human.
Correct.
Very much like a human.
Got it.
So that's it. So this work across almost all known fields that we have today, whether it's astronomy or
Mm-hmm.
paleontology or mathematics. Mathematics is not good. Let me just take that out of the
Mm-hmm.
picture. But many of the other knowledge places, that the areas that you want to work with, these models can help you with it. They are very generic, put it that way. So now you asked about the ecosystem, right?
Correct.
So how does the ecosystem work with it? So a very generic model is a very generic model, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you call it a foundation model. So there are a number of foundation models in NLP. This is natural language processing. Foundation models in computer vision,
Mm-hmm.
in generative AI for things like videos and images and things like that. No. So these are large models created by some of these companies, spending like maybe $20-30 million just to do the training, and maybe more.
Got it.
So average people cannot do that.
Got
Right?
it.
That's
Yeah.
not possible. So these are foundation models, right? So the foundation models are generic. Like DALI is one example of image generation.
Mm-hmm.
Imagen is there. Mid-Journey, Stable Diffusion. There are so many such models. No, it's not just ChatGPT or GPT-4. They're all different, specialized in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense, vision,
Yeah.
imaging, video, right? And GPT is more of a more wider domain. It doesn't do videos yet.
Correct.
The next version is going to do images too.
Mm-hmm.
It can understand images. So given this, how do you take it to the market? Right? That's the question.
Correct.
So just like you have the full stack applications if you talk about in your application development, it's called full stack, multiple levels. Here is also there's a stack.
Got it.
So the AI development also has its own stack.
Mm-hmm.
So the bottom are foundation models, like maybe from OpenAI or Google, etc., like GPT-4 or ChatGPT. Yeah? On top of that, what do? You need to specialize these models into your own domain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For example, you are Bloomberg, you are in the financial domain, right? You have a lot of financial documents which are your own private IP. You want to take that and adapt it and train these models to include your own IP, your own financial data.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the next level. So there are companies coming in with infrastructure which helps you do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is how you specialize. You take the foundation model, similar models, specialize it to your domain specifically, and your own IP, which is not publicly out there. So you can monetize that IP. Right?
Got it.
Bloomberg GPT will be like that. Bloomberg GPT, you can ask a lot of financial related questions, and they'll use their own intelligence on top of the other GPT models. That's the second level. The third level is more like, it's like you have your brain, right? But you still need your sensors. You're able to act in the world, etc. No? This GPT cannot do it today. Right? You cannot send an email, look at your email, look at your calendar. Those things are not there.
Got it.
So how do you connect the sensors and your actual realities with these models, right? That's the next
Got
step.
it.
So there's a whole layer beyond it which will kind of connect, give the ability to, you tell GPT, this is how you send out an email.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you receive an email. This is how you add to your calendar. This is how you set the thermostat of your phone. All kinds of things you can give.
Correct.
So if the model knows that this is what I should call to do this, then it can create a whole logic for
Got it.
It says, okay, send this email, read this email, let me look at the email. All those things it can do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the next level where you kind of connect all these various operations you can do with the external world.
Got it.
The whole set of tool chains coming around that. One is, for example, LangChain. LangChain lets you build like that. Zapier is another example, which is a little more workflow oriented.
Correct.
But that's the next level. So now using three levels,
Correct.
right? The foundation models, you have the custom training domain specific models, and on top of that, you have this, the coordination, and just like you give your brain your sensors and your actuator. That's one. On top of that, you have the application layer. Now you go run with this and build your application,
Got it.
right? So that's the third level. So this at least these four levels exist today,
Got it.
and people are working at different levels. The deeper you go, the more involved it is, the more larger the company, the more investment goes in. And the higher up you go, there are smaller companies using this kind of application.
True. True.
So that's the structure which we see right now in terms of the landscape.
Got it.
Um, in terms of transformation, this is the equivalent to what do you call? People compare it with electricity, maybe discovering the wheel or industrial revolution. But that's the kind of potential it
Correct.
has, the capabilities that it has. Yeah, it can transform almost all aspects of our experience.
Correct.
Yeah, and people are still waking up to it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a tectonic shift, right? If you look at it from what it was to what it can do, is the potential is absolutely phenomenal. In fact, I was just reviewing one of our sales applications that we were using, and they built ChatGPT into it. What it does is, they've given it a persona. And what it does is, it goes, reads your email, understands the sentiment. If someone replies to you, it understands what it is. If it's a positive reply, and if someone says, I want to have a meeting, it understands when your calendar is available, when his calendar, and when your calendar is available, and then it reaches out to them with potential dates, sets up the meeting for you, sets up the meeting in his calendar and your calendar, and all that.
Whole workflow.
Yeah, and all that is done automatically without you even typing one email. It sends out email, reads his email, it sends out email, and all that is
Yeah.
programmed. I mean, it's you. I mean, someone like me can program it. I don't have the technology knowledge or the.
That's the idea. That's great. So the knowledge worker economy is shifting to where
Mhm.
there are people who don't use AI and the people who will use
Correct.
AI. People who are going to use AI are going to displace the people who are not going to use AI. It's going to displace, right? So it's more like you're going to see a lot of job losses, but you'll also see a lot of productivity
Got it.
happening. So it's not that you lose. You're for example, let's take software industry. The productivity is going to increase much
Got
more.
it.
So even though the number of the number of jobs may be
Mhm.
shifting from one location to another, because companies can do more
Correct.
now. Imagine, for example, you take one of our customers. Every product manager, if you look at it, has a long list of features they want to implement. They are always constrained by the budget
True.
and the time,
True.
right? That's all. So now what happens? I can innovate much faster. I'm not going to cut down my team. My team is going to do much better now. They're going to grow. They may be moving into more design rather than coding
Mhm.
per se. But they're going to be there. I need so many members, but now my productivity is going to increase. I can pull out more features, push out more features. I can be more
Mhm.
innovative. It'll accelerate your
Got
growth.
it.
So your GDP that way is going to go that way, right? Even though you're looking at, yeah. So that is a shift you're
Got
going to
it.
see, right? So people are move into a different mode
Uh
of
huh.
working. Programmers have design thinking rather than looking at how do I
Uh
code
huh.
tomorrow. But you still need many people to because the productivity ability is there, right? So that's what you're going to
Got
see.
it. Now that we've been talking so good about it, let's be the devil's advocate and understand where the risks are. I mean, there's a flip side to everything, right? There's a flip side to growth. There's a flip side to technology. There's a flip side to uh, anything that's new. What's the flip side to this kind of generative AI, GPT, and what's
Yeah.
the risk that's involved? So there are two questions. One, what's the flip side of this technology? Where are its limitations as such? Uh, and where do you see the risks? Can it mimic someone? Can it take over someone? And how do you see that?
Okay. So let's talk about
Hmm.
limitations first. That's one of the you know. So one of the this is most of these models
Hmm.
use deep learning. Deep learning is neural networks, right? The problem inherently with many of the deep learning models is that now you cannot explain really why a model did something. It's just like your brain. You have talking to somebody, you made a decision. You cannot go inside your brain and try to identify. It's an extremely complex system. So understandable, explainable AI is difficult.
Hmm.
Not that it cannot be done, But for individual cases, if you want to go and find out why did this model do it this way, it's very hard to actually analyze it. So you kind of treat it
Okay.
as a black box. You learn to trust it as a black box. Just
Got
like
it.
a human, you have to trust it, right? So you may see erratic behavior, you may see what is called
Mm-hmm.
wrong behavior. The term you use is hallucination. That's the term they
Mm-hmm.
use for hallucination. So you have to build models which you
Got it.
can trust, right? By its behavior, not by
Got
looking
it.
into the model, right? And that is a challenge in itself because at any point, suddenly the model might do something which you don't
Mm-hmm.
expect, right? So this explainability and inability to really
Mm-hmm.
understand what's going on is Achilles heel. You can think that it's kind of a problem. So you cannot today deploy it in mission critical things. Unless you're in the military, you don't care shooting at somebody. Then different. But mission critical things, you have
Got
to
it.
think twice today when you deploy this, right? That's the thing. It's not that explainable AI is not possible.
Got
There is
it.
research happening on it, but the research on AI per se is so far ahead, that explainability
Mm-hmm.
is trying to catch up.
Got
It's
it.
not there yet. That's still very difficult. So that is one of the key
Mm-hmm.
issues with these models. So that we see many times we can see that happen. That is why all these racial bias, and you put up a chatbot out there, it starts spewing racial slurs and this and that. All these things are
Mm-hmm.
side effects of because we don't know exactly
Got
what's
it.
going on within these models. In fact, even within GPT, the creators themselves are surprised what the models can do.
Got it.
They're not able to explain it. Why is it? There are also theories about why it
Mm-hmm.
is working this way. Why is it appears almost sentient, but they're not able to explain it this way today. So
Got it.
this is the flip side of it. So because of that, you will get undecided behavior, unpredictable behavior. So you can't trust many times. So there's a lot of human into all feedback and training that you do to make these models better. So that means you kind of talk to the AI, look at the AI, give a human level feedback, and I like this, I
Got
don't
it.
like this, that kind of human involved feedback. So that's what they're doing
Okay.
in OpenAI today. They're having a large number of people and giving feedback into. And when you engage with
Got
ChatGPT,
it.
you're also giving the feedback. That's really so that is the problem. One of the issues with this one. Of course, there is always the displacement of people and jobs and all that. That is, of course, one of the other things.
Got it.
Definitely, that's going to happen to some extent. People have to adapt. Now, the risk side of it is actually more scary, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you one example, which is maybe related. I said, that these
Yeah.
models can do coding, right? You can ask it to. Very good. There is GitHub Copilot and there are many tools. Again, excellent, very good coding tools you have. You can give it a
Mm-hmm.
specification, do code for you. So not only that, the fact
Yeah.
that they understand code means they can also find
Oh my God.
vulnerabilities in the
Okay.
code. Okay, right? Now imagine a state actor. I don't know which state taking
Uh-huh.
this kind of model and training it on
Uh-huh.
a vulnerability database
Okay.
and attack database. Because there's a lot of attack. That model, if you deploy, it's very easy today. We can actually do it. Any state
Correct.
actor can build this for you. You can take it and run it through all the
Mm-hmm.
open source code out there. You discover a lot of vulnerabilities and automatically generate attacks for you.
Okay.
It is a massive
Got it.
capability, attack capability, if you ask me.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Imagine that. So then that state actor can attack using this mechanism because
Correct.
it's AI is doing the attack, right? Because it's all automated. AI is discovering vulnerabilities, is
Mm-hmm.
creating the attack vector, the exploit,
Got
and
it.
it's very attack, right? So then you
Mm.
have to go and patch all of this because we don't know what will exist because AI is able to do this much faster than humans
True.
can
True.
discover these vulnerabilities. Now, defending is a order of magnitude much more difficult because an attacker can choose 10,000 targets and one among them. We
Correct.
have to
Correct.
defend all 10,000, right? That's not easy to do. So that is a real
Mm-hmm.
security issue today, which people need to be concerned about. And you don't hear much about it, but
Oh
it's
my
very
God.
easy to do that thing. So all the security companies are going to find themselves in the 2 years on their toes, trying try to avoid this kind of thing. So in fact, recently there was a call made by a number of AI
Mm-hmm.
researchers, including Elon Musk, to put a hold on
Correct.
the AI development. Stop at Chat GPT-4. Don't do anything for next 6 months.
Correct.
Let's reevaluate what's going to do. Right. So that is only one aspect of the issue that you have. The other aspect is, of course, misinformation. Look at metaverse. Metaverse is you go in. You're going to an artificial
Correct.
environment. Everything you see
Correct.
is artificial, right? You can see that. It's like metaverse in the inverse is coming into you. Like everything that you
Mm-hmm.
interact, which you don't physically see, could be actually AI. For example,
Absolutely. Yeah.
somebody calls you on the
Yeah.
phone. It can have
Correct.
your voice. Okay, you can
Correct.
talk to me as if it is you. Anyone you see on the phone, on the chat, and everything can be perfectly created to match, the realism and everything that you want. So there is no way you can actually determine that
Mhm.
you're talking to an AI. I mean, you can come to that level in a few years. Today we can still make out some of those. Okay. So that is really, dystopic. Can turn to a dystopian world unless you
True.
bring in regulations and things like that. Yeah, that's really required for this kind of thing. So those are the risk side of which is why there is this call to stop AI development for a while until we can
Correct.
group and decide and regulate, and then you go ahead. But people are not going to do it. That kind of, but that's the reason they're like going all of
Got
this.
it.
So there's a
No,
huge
in
risk.
fact, I remember this in one of Google's I/O event. They were trying to showcase technology that can call people and set up appointments. It was supposed to call his doctor's office and set up an appointment for him. And during the call, the lady, the doctor's office, the receptionist at the doctor's office was like, "Can you hold for a minute?" And the AI responded by saying, "Mm-hmm." And that was like very, very. That's an empathetic reaction, right? To saying,
Very
"Can you
much.
stay on hold?" You would not even guess if it's a machine, if that's the kind of empathy it brings out, and it knows what to prompt or what to say at the right instance. Then you kind of, you can't even judge if it's a machine or if it's a
You're coming to a point where you cannot
yeah.
determine whether you're talking
Uh,
to AI or talking to human
and
beings.
that puts a lot
That's
of,
what really it is.
look at countries now. There could be lots happening between countries, and GPT can play a lot of
This is yeah. In fact, you can create a lot of confusion and chaos across the border, across politics. These are the real damaging things you can do. Now, there's a constructive side as well as the destructive side to this one, which really requires really pause on
yeah.
political will and all that, and the regulatory will. But even if you impose it in your country, what do you know about an authoritarian regime,
Correct.
right? You have no
Yeah,
idea what all
like,
it is.
like they say, from chaos comes peace. Let's leave the chaos aside because it's a little scary. Let's move a little towards peace now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Inspirasis. I want to understand about what is the direction that we are going in terms of technology. We're doing a lot of work. I understand that. We've built some of the best products. We've got some of the best customers. But there's a direction that we'll be going every year. Every year there's a strategy change, right? Or maybe a couple of years down the line, you change your strategy to what it is. So, for next 5 years, where do you see technology? What's the role of technology at Inspirasys, uh, and how do you think it plays out?
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting question. No? We come across this 5 year term many times. To me, it is kind of reflective of the old USSR and the way they 5 year plans. And China made these 5 year plans, and India used to do these 5 year plans earlier. That was probably true in the sense of earlier times when innovation was not going so fast. Industrial age, and then you could even do a waterfall application development. You start with your requirements, your analysis, your design, then you go into coding and
Hmm.
test and test, and maybe in a year you make 2 releases, right? But today, if you do that, by the time you come to your product, you'll be out of, you'll see the market has gone ahead, your competitor has gone ahead of you, and all that, right? So that kind of a model is no longer very, amenable. You can try to make a 5 year plan, but by the time you get to the second
Oh
or
no, you're
third year, you'll
absolutely
see that
right. I mean,
you're
you're
probably going to
absolutely
fail.
right.
You have to course correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So even today, if you buy hardware,
Hmm.
it's only for 3 years maximum. You can use that, amortize it for you. So yeah, you move
Got it.
from that kind of a planning to what is more agile, right? The agile, just like in software, you
Hmm.
have the
Of course, yeah.
agile development is what you do. It has its risk, of course, right? But you do the agile. Agile brings
Hmm.
in a lot of complexity also in many other ways, right? That is what companies would, today, if you because the pace of innovation is so big, every 2 years, 3 years, Microsoft comes with new technologies, and then you have to adapt, right? So that is what you've seen. Even from the pandemic, AI was a surprise. You see all these, innovation triggers and disruptions, and could be not just technology. This is political disruptions, pandemic,
Correct.
this thing, that thing. Everything is accelerating in some way, right? So it's very hard
Mhm.
to do long-term planning. In many cases, you can try to
Correct.
make it. So what you have to do is you have to be agile, right? Agile, and then look at how the market is going, etc. And then based on maybe 1 to 2 year, you can at best and create a good plan on it, right? Even that, by the time 1 year is done, you're sure
You're
that
right.
things might shift here and happen. So how do you, yeah, how do you actually make such a plan? Right? You need to have market input. Without the market input, you cannot really do any of this, right? What is the market? Where is the market going? Right? That's important. So market research, something that we do. Let me ask you. I don't think it's that useful because most of them are in 2 years, 3 years, the market is going to be like this, and this is going to have so much, etc. That's what it does. It's a very forward-looking, very positive, etc. That's what you see. But you also want to see what's happening right now. Right? This market research reports many times will not cover, and they'll tell you next year, 3 years down the line, 4 year forecast, this technology is going to go up, etc. But you also want to know what is the ground situation, right? Then only can you really, plan for many of this. So the question is, how do you plan, right? That is one of the things, if not a 5 year
Hmm.
plan, how do you set that plan? So there are multiple ways you can look at how the market is going, because that's important to understand, to make any plans. You need to be in touch with the market and the
Correct.
customers and all that, right? So market research reports are things people use. If you ask me, they are useful, but they are usually forward-looking to 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, like that. Within
Correct.
3 years, 4 years, it will be your market is going to be this big, right? So that is useful. That kind of gives you a trend of where it's going. But you want to know what's happening right now, right? So how
Correct.
do you do that, right? That's one of the things which we've been trying. So one way is there are two main important ways. One is of course your customers, right? But your customer segment will not cover everything that you want to talk about. You can interrogate, talk to your customers and get information. They'll tell you they are planning this one next quarter, etc. Some information you can get. The other is you talk to your partners. Let's say a distribution, something like the Ingram Micro. It's the largest distributor in the US.
Hmm.
So they sell a lot of application software and everything across, everything from hardware to software they sell across the market. They are in touch with what's happening in the field. So you approach them, you are a partner, you ask for a consultation.
Hmm.
And then I would like to talk to you guys. Let's say cybersecurity. So I am talking, I would like to talk to a cybersecurity expert. We are looking at the market. We like to understand what are the products which are currently selling.
Correct.
Can you give us some advice? They will be happy to do it because if they help us to help ourselves, they are going to sell our
Correct.
products, right? In many cases, if
Correct.
it's a cybersecurity product. Happy to oblige, they'll give you intelligence on what's in the field.
Hmm.
Yeah. So this product is selling. So for example, in the pandemic time, we approached them. They said, "Oh, these are the specific products that are selling. These are the ones you should be looking into based on your capabilities." So we kind of give them a pitch. This is what we do, and etc. What is the best match? And that's free service they'll give you. So
Correct.
this is not only this. You go to multiple distributors, they'll give you the equivalent of this white paper equivalent of this is the strategy you should use to sell your products. Right? These are the areas you should go, and that gives you a good feel of what's selling in the market today. It's not forecast in the future, but today what is working, right? That gives you.